Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to the section where we're going to cover the sales legacy pillars. Now, the sales legacy pillars are going to be the building blocks for your business. And from a macro perspective, it's going to allow you to see all these individual pieces that make up your business so you get a high level overview of everything that's going on. Not only that, but you're going to be able to go into the micro and see exactly how these pillars work so that if you ever have a problem, you could see exactly what to do to fix it. Or if you're trying to look for what's working in your business and to replicate that, the sales legacy pillar is also going to let you do that as well. Now, the three main questions that the sales legacy pillars is going to answer for you is first, it's going to give you an understanding of who your ideal customer is, meaning who's the perfect customer you would like to buy your product or service. Next, you're going to answer what exactly is your product or service that solves another person's problems. Again, that's when you're generating value. The last question is, what value are you providing for this customer? Because it's not enough just to solve someone else's problems, you also have to remain competitive in your industry so you can figure out what features you can add, what extra value you can add, how can you increase your prices and position yourself as a premium product versus competing on price with everybody else. So these are all questions that the sales legacy pillars will help you solve. And so with that, let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, a lot of people, especially when they're starting startups or if they're working on their own project, they have this excuse that they make to themselves of why they don't go out and sell and pitch. And they say that their thing, whatever it is, has to be perfect. Now, the question that I would actually ask these people is, how do you know what perfect is? And the reality is there's really no such thing as perfect because we get to define what perfect means. But in reality, the people who are saying that it has to be perfect are afraid to release something out into the market and take rejection. And so that's why they want to make it as good as possible to prevent themselves from getting hurt. But the thing I want to make people realize is that the vast majority who put out any type of product or service don't get it right on the first try. Almost nobody does. That's why you have to put something out and see if people like it. And if they do, great. If they don't, go back and make changes. And the truth is, most businesses, they have to constantly change and evolve as time goes on. So there's no need for an idea of perfect and spending a huge amount of time before you release it. You just have to put it out and innovate and change depending on what the market tells you. So with this, we're going to move into a section where we're going to talk about pivoting. And that's essentially the concept where when you put out an idea, sometimes things don't work out the way you want them to work out, or when you're trying to sell something, people are not receptive and you might have to go back to the drawing board and change your pitch. So let's go ahead and dive into pivoting. So the first type of pivoting we're going to go into is when you are tweaking your product or service 10 to 20% based on your customer feedback and any type of new information that you gain. So this could be if you have your own company and you're working on a product or service, or if you're a salesperson, you could also be tweaking how you're pitching your product or service by 10 to 30%, depending on how your customers respond. So this is typically how it goes when a startup wants to reach a level of success. They start on the bottom, they go up a little bit, and then they hit a roadblock. A customer might say like, hey, we don't really need what you have. Or maybe they might say, hey, the price point's a little too high, or whatever it is, right? So you hit a roadblock, and then you just got to tweak 10 to 30%, change that pitch a little bit, boom. And then you move on, you hit another roadblock and say, okay, well, what do I need to change this time? Go back to the drawing board and then make those changes and then come back into the market and try again. You try again and boom, you hit another roadblock. And that's how it goes. No matter what you do in life, there are always going to be roadblocks that stop you, but don't think of them as something negative. Think of it as a blessing where someone's giving you feedback on how you can improve your pitch, product, or service. And then from there, once you make those changes, you can pivot once again and then finally reach that level of success that you are looking for. So as you can see here, most people don't get it in a straight line where they go from startup all the way to success. They have to take many different routes before they actually find their own route to success. Now, the other type of pivoting we're going to talk about is pivoting number 2, which is changing your product or service by 80% based on your customer feedback or any type of new information that you gain on the market. You might be saying, okay, we got a great product. Let's go ahead and put it out. Boom. You hit this major roadblock where you realize people don't even care about what you have. Nobody likes it. Price point's too high. Everything is just off. Well, what you can do is you can say, okay, let's go back to the drawing board and really make some big changes and then redefine what it means to be successful. So you redefine that success, make those changes, and boom, you pivoted from an idea that was completely bad into redefining your own success, and then boom, making it over to the other side. So as you can see here, this is a major pivot where someone put out an idea and they had to make some big changes. So you can research research and theorize as much as you want and ponder in your bed and think at night and prevent yourself from sleeping, but you don't really know if your business idea is going to work or not unless you test it and see people's reaction. A lot of times people are just too afraid to actually put something out into the market, and they never go anywhere. And so for you, I want to make sure that you guys actually go out and test your product or service and know that usually it's not going to work out on the first try. And that's why there's pivoting, and that's why you create iterations and improve over time. So now again, there's nothing wrong with pivoting. Pivoting is all about finding a new direction that's going to work for your business. And some famous examples of famous pivots include YouTube. So YouTube actually started out as a dating site, and now it's one of the largest video platforms in the world. Twitter started out as a podcasting website, and now it's become Twitter, which is a social media platform. And Nintendo, which we all know for Super Mario Brothers, started out as a trading card company. They dabbled in a lot of different types of business after trading cards, like taxis, instant rice products, or even hourly hotels. And now they're known for being a giant video game company. So as you can see here, there are endless examples of successful companies that pivoted. And the reason is because you always have to be innovative and look for new opportunities in the market. And you can't always just do the one same thing over and over and expect it to work. And especially if you're a startup, you don't even have the data to prove that your one direction is going to work. So that's why you got to pivot and move and try to figure out what's the best for you, your team, and your customers. So now that you understand the concept of pivoting, we're going to give you an introduction to the sales legacy pillars. And again, these are going to be the fundamental building blocks to your business, whether you're a salesperson or an entrepreneur. Okay, so the first block of the sales legacy pillar is going to be your ideal customer. Next is your product or service, and then after that is going to be value. So all these different pieces all interconnect. If one piece is broken, the whole business is failing. So you want to make sure all the pieces are aligned. So starting with the ideal customer, essentially what that is understanding who your market is and the specific type of people you want to sell your product or service to. And you have to understand with the ideal customer what painful problem that they have, and the problem has to be so painful that they're willing to pay money to make it go away. So from there, you need to understand their current situation and their ideal situation and how you're going to take them from point A to point B. And the last part is having confidence in yourself that you are able to actually solve that problem. Next up is your product or service. So now that you understand your ideal customer, you understand what their problems are, this is where you're going to come up with your solution to that ideal customer's problem in the form of a product or a service. And ideally, you're going to achieve them great results with a minimal amount of effort. And if you can, make sure that it's scalable, and that's going to help you in your business moving forward. Also here, you want to understand what price point you're offering your product or service, because that is going to be important as well. And lastly, we have value. And this is what your customer will gain from your product or service. And it's typically the ideal situation that you're going to help your customer get to. And remember, that's getting them from their current situation, point A, to their ideal situation, which is point B. And you also need to understand why your solution, your product or service is going to be better and different from your competition. Because if you're just like everybody else, you're not offering real value, because it becomes a zero-sum game. So make sure you're offering more value than other people. And lastly, you want to make sure that you can get your desired result as quickly as possible for your ideal customer, because the faster you can get them to point A to point B, the more value you are going to provide. So using the sales legacy blocks, I want to go a little deeper into this idea of effort versus revenue, which we just talked about a little. So as you can see here on the y-axis, you have effort, which is defined by how difficult it is to provide the solution and how much time it's going to take. On the x-axis, you have revenue, how much money you're making from doing this job. So on the bottom left, you have low revenue and low effort. And this is not that great to be in, because even though you're not putting a lot of effort in, you're not making a lot of money. The worst place to be in is on the top left, which is low revenue, high effort, meaning you're putting in a lot of work and you're making very little money. Another not so good place to be is on the top right, high revenue, high effort. That means you're putting a lot of effort, but you're making a lot of money. And now the best place to be is actually on the bottom right, which is high revenue, low effort. And it doesn't mean you're not doing a good job. It just means that whatever product or service you're providing is very easy for you to do, and you're providing a lot of value and making a lot of money from it. So when you're thinking about your sales legacy pillars, try to align your product or service in a way where you are making a high amount of revenue with relatively low effort. All right, so from here, with the sales legacy pillars, you're gonna have your ideal customer, your product or service, and then the value that you're providing for a specific individual. Now, the thing is, you might go out and you have all these things down and you try to pitch it to a few customers. And some people might say, hey, the price is off, or I'm not getting enough value, or maybe you're not really solving any of my pains. And you say, okay, well, looks like I have to pivot a little bit, maybe 10 to 30%, go back into the lab, go back into the office and see what changes you can make to your pitch, your product or service. And then from there, what you're gonna do is you're gonna create a version number 2. So now that you have version number 2, you say, okay, I made these changes. I'm gonna go out into the market, see how they like it. And they may like some things, they may not like other things. And you go back into your office and you make those changes and you create version number 3. And as you can see here, it's going to be an iterative process to create your sales legacy pillars. And again, these are the pillars of your business. So that's why it's gonna take it's gonna take a lot of effort for you to actually get this down, because like I was saying in the beginning of this course, nobody gets it right on the first try. And that's why you constantly have to innovate and improve on your offering and make it better and better. And even when you get all these pieces right, the market is always changing, it's always innovating. And so that's why you have to stay innovative as well. So this is just a simple way to break down your business, understanding who your ideal customer is, your product and service, and what value you're providing. And as long as you understand these elements really well and you're constantly innovating and creating new versions of this, then you're always going to be competitive in the market. Now, with all that said, now we're going to go into the sales legacy pillars worksheet, where you're going to figure out what your sales legacy pillars are, so you have a better understanding of how you can make your business more successful. All right, so diving into the sales legacy pillars right here, as you can see, it's going to be a 2-page worksheet. And so let's go ahead and start with page 1 and dive a little deeper. So on the top here, sales legacy pillar worksheet. In this worksheet, you'll be setting the foundations for your sales legacy pillars. Fill it in as much as you can, but know that you will come back to it again later to iterate and improve it as you continue the course. For this worksheet, you're going to be able to download it as an electronic PDF, and you can actually type in right here if you choose to, or if you are somebody who likes to print it out, write with pen and paper, that's totally fine as well. So the first step of the sales legacy pillar is we're going to get into your ideal customer, right? So the question is, what market do you want to sell to? What significant pain does this market experience? What does their ideal situation look like? And do you believe you can solve this problem? So this is the similar stuff that we've been talking about throughout this entire course, and you want to fill it in right here. Next, you're going to talk about your product or service. What is your solution to your ideal customer's pain? It can either be a product or service, obviously, and what price point do you offer your product or service at? And so go ahead and fill it in right here. And number 3, and the third part, value. What does your ideal customer gain from your product or service? Typically their ideal situation. Why is it more significant than other solutions? Meaning, how are you different from your competitors? And how quickly can you get customer results? These are the 3 questions that you definitely have to have answered before you even start pitching your product or service to anyone, because you need to understand who you're selling to, what you're selling, and why they should be buying. And so those are 3 basic pillars that you can use to validate whether or not you actually have a good idea and you're actually solving someone's pain. And so from there, when we move to page number 2, this is going to be the effort versus revenue worksheet. It's attached to the sales legacy pillars worksheet, and it's going to help you improve your pillars. So here I have the graph of obviously the effort and the revenue, and this is the graph we talked about. So number 1 is, based on your sales legacy pillars, does your product or service require low or high effort, and does it generate low or high revenue? So you need to understand where you fall in this box. Obviously, you want to be in this 4th box, high revenue and low effort, but if you're not, that's totally fine. Just make a note of that. Number 2, how can you change your product or service to generate higher revenues while maintaining the same or a lower amount of effort? Meaning, if you fall into, let's say, low effort, low revenue, how do you change this and get into the high revenue, low effort, right? And so you want to brainstorm ideas here. And then from there, how can you change your product to require less effort while maintaining the same or higher revenue? So if you got a lot of high effort and let's say low revenue, or let's say high effort and high revenue, you want to keep your revenue, how can you change your effort to make it lower to be in this box. So obviously all these questions here are meant to support your sales legacy pillars to ensure that whatever product or service that you want to create or whatever product or service you're selling, you're in the high revenue, low effort box, because that's just going to help you fundamentally create a much stronger business. So with that said, again, you can download this as an electronic PDF, or you can download it and then print it out. So before you even move forward with the rest of this course, you definitely want to fill this out as best as you can. Even if you're just starting out and you have a vague idea of what kind of startup you want to do, go ahead and fill it out, because it's going to give you a better understanding of how this course is going to work. You can always go back to this worksheet and change it as you learn more about this course and you learn more about what type of business you want to do. So with that said, go ahead and fill out this entire worksheet, and I'm going to see you guys in the next section.